What's up, guys? Belligerent here with a new Skull and Bones video. In this video, I want to take a look at how to fight Lestari and Mega Lestari, which is the event that's going on right now. Before we get into this, let's get a few things out of the way. With this being a daily quest, it's hard to test different things out, so by no means am I declaring this is the best build or anything. To be honest, I'm just showing my ship info on the screen for anyone who might ask me about it after watching my videos. This is what I'm running. Also, I don't have the other ships fully built out yet, fully upgraded yet, so the damage results that you take from Lestari may vary from what you're seeing in the video. Honestly, none of this is really important to this video because my points are how to fight Lestari. Finally, Mega Lestari is an event, so it won't be available all the time and may not be available when you watch this video, but it's hard to imagine that all the sea monsters they introduce as events won't be on some type of rotation and return in the future, so even if it's not available now, should be useful for you in the future. That being said, let's jump in. Real quick, if you enjoy this video, a like would be super appreciated. It's nearly zero effort for you and it helps me a lot. And if you want to know when I put out more videos, remember to smash that subscribe button. All right, now we're going to break down the Lestari fight. I'll give you my opinions on the approach, and all of this is really from a solo perspective, but even in the public chaos that happens when there's multiple players that show up to help out, not a lot of this changes other than you won't know, or you won't have a good feel for who the shark is targeting. One final note about public groups is if you're joining a public group, I encourage you to group up to actually, invite somebody to a group, because you do get more rewards at the end. Oh yeah, and one thing I forget is if you are in a public event, whether you're grouped up or not, the damage, especially from Mega Lestari, is going to be much higher than if you do it solo. Okay. For those that don't know, you can pick up the Mega Lestari quest from the bounty board. It's called Silent Death, and from what I can tell, you're able to pick it up twice a day, assuming you complete it with enough time in between. I'm not exactly sure what the time requirement is, but I've been able to do it twice in one day. Also know that if you have claimed the quest and then join someone else's call for help, it'll complete your quest at the same time. So I try to wait to claim mine until I'm ready to run it. That way I maximize the number of attempts I get, and if I go to help somebody else out, it's a bonus attempt. Regular Lestari is a daily quest you can pick up from the Huntsman in Lenitra. And before we get into actually breaking down this fight, let's discuss a few of my observations and choices. First, just an observation, what I see a lot of people do, which in my opinion is kind of wasted energy, is try to chase the shark around. I personally just plant myself in the center of the circle and let the shark come to me. It's really kind of too fast to chase it around, and the shark will come to you, especially if you're running it solo. It just comes to you. So it's more just a waiting game. All right, let's talk weapons. While I don't know that weapon choice is particularly important, what works for me and what I'm running are the Zamzama 3s on the sides, and I put bombard cannons on the front, but for no particular reason other than that's what I use just regularly running the game. I could argue that putting demi cannons on all four sides will work better for me against Lestari, but I'm too lazy to swap them out, so that's why they're on there. For the most part, I feel like you can run whatever you're comfortable with. I do, however, recommend the demi cannons because the targets you get on the shark are so quick. It's better to have everything fire all at once than some of the other cannons that fire 1, 2, 3, 4 and then repeat. For artillery, I'm running the Warhammer rocket launcher. I think they are a better choice than other options I see people using, namely the spring loaders. And I'll show you why here in just a second when we jump into this. Yes, the spring loaders do a little bit of tick damage if the shark swims through them, but that's kind of irrelevant. It's like I said, it's just bits and pieces here and there. One viable option, if you are struggling with health, especially with Mega Lestari, is you could use the healing spring loader, shoot it out, and sit in the healing. Especially if you're in not quite if you're not in the snow and you don't have quite as much health or quite as much brace, that could help you buy some time in between the cooldowns on your repair kits. So that's one option. I wouldn't recommend it, but that is a viable option in my mind. I haven't necessarily tested it out myself. Ultimately, the artillery choice is, in my opinion, mostly irrelevant, except I'm going to show you something here with the rockets where I think the rockets are really good, and I'll show you why. Okay. I also don't like torpedoes as a choice. They do very little damage, it feels like, and they are really hard to aim, at least for me, because the shark moves so fast. And even when I have tried to lead the shark will then stop and turn towards me and avoid them. Even with the new homing torpedoes that you can buy for sovereigns in the black market, they don't seek out the target worth a damn. So it does a little bit of curve and still ends up missing the target, at least for me. Maybe you have more skill and better results with the torpedoes, so they could be an option. The other thing is if the shark fully submerges, the torpedoes miss anyway, which I thought was kind of weird since the torpedoes are supposed to be an underwater thing, but it is what it is. Let's move on. All right. Regular Lestari has 3 attacks. The first attack you are likely to see is what I call the charge. You can identify this attack by the sudden wiggle upon approach as she propels herself forward towards you, as you can see in this clip. One thing to note that I don't know if everybody knows is that this attack can be interrupted. If you shoot her in the face as she leaps at you, it will cancel the attack, assuming your timing was correct, and you'll take no damage. She'll just flop down into the water. There is also enough time to fire and brace just to protect yourself. So especially when you're learning the timing, and especially if you're going up against Mega Lestari, I would definitely recommend the fire and brace method. And that way, if you mistime it, you're still blocking damage. Okay. One thing to note is that I don't know, and I haven't tested whether there is a damage threshold that needs to be reached in order to interrupt it. So I cannot say for sure if other weapons will interrupt it or not. Like if you're using, I'm drawing a blank, if you're using like the Basilisk and the cannons fire singularly, I don't know if they do enough damage as where the demi cannon kind of fires everything all at once. So do test at your own risk. This is also where my choice on the rocket launcher comes into play. Another approach for interrupting this attack is to fire the rockets so they're falling just as she jumps out of the water. This does 2 things, and this is why this is my preferred method for this attack, is this will interrupt the attack, and when she pops back up, your side cannons will be ready to go, and you can get double the damages, where if you're just using the cannons to interrupt, the reload may not happen in time. So that is the reason I was saying earlier that I do prefer rocket launchers over the spring loaders or anything like that, because you can actually interrupt with this weapon. The second attack is very similar to the charge, except there's no charge, there's no wiggle. This seems to only happen if she's already close to you, usually preceded by circling your ship. You'll see the shark submerge and then suddenly leap at you. Saying the attack looks the same as the charge attack that we were just talking about, but there's no charge. It's almost like she's circling, and then gets bored and jumps at you. This attack is different. As I said, there's no approach where you can kind of identify it. You just gotta kind of pay attention to the shark. If she's circling you and then suddenly and slowly goes underwater, get ready, brace and get ready for that attack. But it also, I have been unsuccessful in interrupting this attack. So if you see it coming, just brace. It rarely happens. It happens to me so little, at least when I'm playing solo, that I almost didn't recognize it as a different attack. And I almost didn't include it in this video. And then the final attack for regular Lestari is what I call the tail attack. In this attack, she will approach you, as she does with the charge, but again, there's no wiggle. It's just a very slow, straight towards you approach. She will dip under the water, then pop her head back up, kind of like gaining momentum, and then she will dive down, pulling her tail out of the water and flip onto your ship. Okay. This attack disables your sails. With regular Lestari, that's pretty much irrelevant, other than it makes it harder to turn for a few moments. Like I said, I don't chase her around anyway. So with regular Lestari, it is irrelevant. With Mega Lestari, it's important, and we'll get to that in just a minute. So the best approach to this attack is to shoot her in the face when you see her slowly rise her head out to get that momentum. You can also, as a choice, but I think is a worse choice, you can shoot the body as it's flipping towards you and then brace. But the difference is, if you shoot the face, then before the tail comes out, your cannons should be reloaded after you absorb the hit once she pops up out of the water, which will allow you to get double the damage on it. Okay. One fun fact before we move on to Mega Lestari is, did you know that if NPCs, such as the rogues, if you have the death mark, follow you into the circle, Lestari will attack them as well? I thought that was neat. I didn't know if she would recognize the NPC ships. All right, now for Mega Lestari. As Mega Lestari is concerned, everything I said about regular Lestari holds true. Couple things I'll point out, though. She does much more damage, so you will be punished harder, especially on the interrupt, if you time it wrong. Second difference that I want to mention is that when she does the tail attack, she will not pop back up, as I just mentioned a minute ago about regular Lestari, and that's because of the new attack that Mega Lestari has. Okay? Everything else is the same. You can interrupt the same. You can interrupt with rockets. You can interrupt by shooting in the face. I will say the interrupt by the rockets for me, and maybe it's just poor timing, but have been a little hit and miss. So be careful with that. It hasn't always triggered the interrupt. All right, so the one new attack that they added to Mega Lestari is the underneath attack. This attack is apparently designed to do two things. First, it couples really well with the tail attack. After she breaks your sails so you can't move, she's coming from underneath to chomp your ship. In my opinion, this is the scariest attack on Mega Lestari because your brace is still recovering from the tail attack and you can't move to avoid the attack. Generally, I can survive with the snow, but if my repair kits are on cooldown, then the panic begins, especially in group play, and I'm pounding my button, waiting for the sails to come back on so I can move so I don't get hit with a second attack. It seems to also be designed to keep you from sitting still. The first time I played this, I was hit with this attack minus the tail attack like 3 times in a row because I was just sitting still and blocking, and she came up from underneath, came up from underneath, came up from underneath. Once I started moving, she moved on to other attacks. So I believe it's meant to keep you from just sitting still as well. This attack typically won't start happening until she's below half health. My best recommendation for this is to move slowly around the area and vary your speed to try to fake out the computer as to where you will be. What I do is I will try to trigger my full sails, get moving for just a second, and then almost instantly drop them back down to a standstill. If I time it correctly, it will put the attack in front of me where it thinks I'm going to be, but because I stopped, I didn't, stop soon enough. I didn't have the momentum to carry me there. But if I time it wrong, it either knows that I'm stopping and still comes up from directly underneath me, or if I stop it too late, I drift into the attack zone anyways. That all being said, I suck at avoiding this attack, and I haven't found a good answer for it. You can identify this attack by bubbles coming out of the water. If you're sitting still, they will come up directly beneath you. If you're moving around, the bubble happens in front of you most often, which will give you the opportunity to brace. The more agile ships might do better at stopping or turning to avoid these attacks, but me and my snow, that doesn't really work that well. My best recommendation to handle this move is to just let it happen and counterpunch. If you're fast enough and you don't die from the attack, you can actually get off a shot as soon as the attack happens. So when I know it's happening, I will turn my camera so I'm aiming off the side of my ship to use my side weapons. I'll hold down brace, and then as soon as the brace breaks, signaling that I block the attack, I immediately aim and fire, and can usually get damage onto the shark. Hopefully this guide was helpful for you. If you have any tips I don't know about or I missed in this video, let me know in the comments below. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. I'm Belligerent. Peace.